What's going on, guys? My name is Joe. You can find me everywhere online at Tattoo Theist. Today, we're going to be talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's going to be kind of an overview of information regarding how we got them, where they came from, what kind of the history of it is, what did this add to the Christian space, to the Bible, just general context. If you don't know much about the Dead Sea Scrolls, or maybe you know that they provided us more information, but you don't know exactly why or how it's relevant, it's extremely relevant. First thing, real quick, if you want to get in on the Bible study that we do, that is a live stream through YouTube, or the podcast, which is a live stream through Rumble. Either way, you can go to tattootheist.com. I've tried to make it just a bunch of links so everything is easy to find. If you hit latest podcast videos, it'll take you directly to the Rumble where we stream the podcast. And the reason we do that is because of YouTube's terms of service. I want people to be able to say whatever they want to say. So we stream that through Rumble, and then you can find all those there. If you'd rather listen, I started putting them all on Spotify. So they're also video from Spotify. So if you put them up on Spotify, you will also be able to watch the video. You don't have to watch it through Rumble or YouTube. After I'm able to censor things, I'll upload it to the podcast tab on my normal YouTube channel, and you'll be able to watch kind of a cut up censored version of it there. If there's nothing to censor, then I don't censor it. I just upload it and bring it directly to you guys. You can also figure out how to support if that's something you want to do from here. If you want to join our Discord, which is where the podcast is held and streamed through to Rumble, then same thing, midway through scrolling down on the website, you can just hit this join Discord link right there, and then you will be good to go. This is the Discord. If you ever come here, it's the easiest way to find out what we're doing. It'll have the next Bible study that's scheduled. In this case, it's Sunday, every Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Time. And then the group discussion is the podcast. That is where everybody has a chance to speak. I'll unmute you and you can talk, or you're welcome to just listen. But that is that one starting at 6:45. So it's 6 p.m. We have the Bible study. As soon as that closes, we switch off of YouTube. We switch on to Rumble. We all go to Discord. And then we have a group discussion on some topic that I put out. Also, we just have kind of an off-topic chat. You'll see things here. Everybody's just kind of chatting. Theology, Bible, conspiracy, anything you possibly imagine. It's just a good group of people who are genuinely just trying to learn more about their faith, spirituality, and build bonds with people who are like-minded. Now, jumping in. This is going to be 9 things that you should know about the Dead Sea Scrolls. This was written by Joe Carter. I've gone through it. I've verified. I agree with it. I think it's great information. So earlier this week, and this was written 2 years ago, so this was several years back, archaeologists announced the discovery of a dozen of Dead Sea Scroll fragments bearing biblical text. So this was 2 years ago. The Dead Sea Scrolls themselves were found in 1947. So 2 years ago, we actually had a second discovery and more information added to what was completely earth-shattering when we found the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947. So just 2 years ago, that's very recent. The fragments of parchment included lines of Greek text from the books of Zechariah and Nahum. Based on the writing style, they have been dated to around the 1st century AD. They are the first new scrolls found in archaeological excavations in the desert south of Jerusalem in more than 60 years. So 9 things you should know. And I do agree, everybody should know kind of this outline for the Dead Sea Scrolls. So number 1 is the Dead Sea Scrolls are biblical, apocryphal, and sectarian works. The Dead Sea Scrolls, an ancient manuscript discovered between 1947 and 1956, archaeologists found about 950 different manuscripts of various lengths, mostly in fragments, so not complete works, fragmental works, though some were intact, meaning some were at least very close to full works of text. The manuscripts have been classified into 3 main categories. Again, biblical, apocryphal, and sectarian. The apocryphal books include such works as Tobit, Judith, and the Book of Jubilees, and the 4th book of Ezra. If you haven't read the apocryphal text, please do that. Just because it's not in canon does not mean it's not important. It adds incredible context to what the people of that time were thinking. What were they studying? What were they reading? What were they talking about? What was their context? Because when you read the Bible, you need to remember and be really hard on yourself. The Bible was not written to you. It was not. As much as a pastor wants to tell you that, or anybody wants to make you feel good, the Bible was not written to you. The Bible was written to people during that time. So the way the Bible's written is assuming that people of that time know the other things that are going on at that time. Us today have no clue unless you're a biblical scholar or somebody who genuinely does some good research into biblical contextual understanding. You need to understand that and really remember that. So the apocryphal books, although they're not canon, they still provide such an incredible understanding of the culture, of what religious people were thinking, and of what the Christian space at the time was, and the Jewish space. It's super important. So these sectarian scrolls included interpretations of Pentateuch laws, various biblical stories, and the prophets. Number 2, the first scrolls were found in a cave by teenage shepherds. I love this story. I think it's just really cool. So the documents have been known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, were found in 11 caves along the northwest shore. The location is 13 miles east of Jerusalem and 1,300 feet below sea level. In late 1946 or early 1947, a Bedouin teenager shepherd was tending his goats and sheep when he stumbled upon an opening on the side of a cliff. He and his friend later entered the cave and found a collection of large clay jars, some of which contained leather and papyrus scrolls. Amazing, amazing. What a crazy thing to stumble on just with your buddy when you're out taking care of the sheep and the goats. Number 3, most Old Testament books are present in the scrolls. So most of the Old Testament, they actually were able to uncover when they found these documents. More than 230 manuscripts in the collection are biblical scrolls, copies of the works that are now part of the Old Testament. The scrolls contain partial or complete copies of every book in the Hebrew Bible, except for the book of Esther. Many of the biblical manuscripts closely resemble the Masoretic text, which was used for many English translations. Now, please listen to me. The KJV, the ESV, and the NIV. So ESV and NIV being the 2 most popular Bible translations within the Christian culture. By far. These were revised heavily after the Dead Sea Scrolls were uncovered due to having more information. Number 4, the collection includes the oldest intact Old Testament manuscript that we have. The Great Isaiah Scroll is one of the original 7 Dead Sea Scrolls discovered in Qumran in 1947. It is one of the largest, being 24 feet long, and the best preserved of all the biblical scrolls, and the only one that contains the entire text. The scroll is written on 17 sheets of parchment and includes all 66 chapters of the Hebrew version of Isaiah. Wild. Dating from CA 125 BC, it is 1,000 years older than the previously oldest manuscript of the Hebrew Bible found in modern times. Predates what we have all been working off of by 1,000 years. That is substantial. That is incredible. This is such a crazy find and changed things. It altered quite a bit. Predates what we've all been functioning off of by over 1,000 years. Number 5, most of the scrolls are about 2,000 years old. The majority of the Dead Sea Scrolls were written between the 2nd century BC and the 2nd century AD. Jewish scholar Frank Moore Cross and archaeologist Neam Avigad concluded that the scrolls fragments were written between 225 BC and AD 50. Carbon dating estimated that an animal skin from the scrolls was from around the same period. The bronze coins found around the cave appeared to span from 135 BC to AD 73. These are the oldest known copies of biblical works. So whereas before we were functioning off of what we at the time was the oldest manuscripts we had available, this discovery in 1947 changed that dramatically. It wasn't, oh, we found one that's 50 years older or 100 years older. It's like 1,000 years older, 2,000 years older than the manuscripts we've all been functioning off of since. It's wild. It's crazy. Number 6, the scrolls are in several languages. Most of the scrolls are in Hebrew, using the standard square Jewish script that is similar to today's modern Hebrew. Several are written in the Paleo-Hebrew, an ancient script from the First Temple period. The collection also includes many Aramaic and Greek texts, which all makes perfect sense, as well as some of the Arabic texts and a small number of Latin fragments, which is kind of interesting, actually. Number 7, The collection includes tiny parchments worn as tefillin. These scrolls include entire manuscripts of books found in the Bible, as well as ritual objects used with the tefillin, small black leather boxes containing scrolls of parchment inscribed with verses from the Torah, and mezuzah placed on the doorpost of houses. These are small slips of parchment containing excerpts of biblical texts in keeping with Deuteronomy 6:6-9. And these words I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Number 8, no one knows for sure who wrote the documents. Shocking. Scholars have not come to a consensus about who created and collected the original scrolls. Most believe it was a Jewish sect, though some have argued it was first century Christians. Based on current evidence, the most plausible groups appear to be either Essenes or Sadducees, specifically a community led by Zodokite priests. 1 Chronicles 16:39. And number 9, the newly found scrolls contain textual variants. This is where it gets interesting. And this textual variation is what, within our group and our Bible study, we are going to be focusing on more and have already focused on a bit. But the textual variations between manuscripts is at times minimal and at times rather severe, meaning that at times it completely changes the meaning of the text. That's problematic. And most Christians like to ignore this. They like to say that the Bible is inerrant, right? That it's never been changed, it's never been added to, it's never been altered. This is downright a lie. You have to do massive gymnastics to get out of the cold, hard fact and reality that the Bible has been changed all throughout history, whether it's by accident or whether it was absolutely on purpose, even with malicious intent or with personal bias as the intention. But the reality is the Bible has been changed. It has had things redacted, it has had things added, and not all Bibles include all the same things. We could get into that in another video. But the newly found scrolls contain textual variants. The latest scrolls include slight variations, their words there, in the Greek rendering of the Hebrew original that differ from the Septuagint, which is obviously the translation of the Hebrew Bible in the 3rd and 2nd century BC that was used by the early church. So that is what, when you're looking at these very early Christians, they were functioning off of the Septuagint. We talk about that relatively often. When we think about the biblical text, this is a quote. We think about something very static, says Joe Uziel, head of the Antiquities Authority's Dead Sea Scrolls unit. Quote, it wasn't static. There are slight differences, and some of those differences are important. At least he admits it. Every little piece of information that we can add, we can understand a little bit better how the text came into its traditional Hebrew form. Now, in closing out, we could do a bunch of videos on the Dead Sea Scrolls and then start kind of isolating different things that it added, that it changed, that it gave us more insight to. But this discovery in and of itself, it dramatically changed the landscape, specifically for translations. And many translations were edited and updated and added to once these were discovered. They were a substantial, super substantial finding within the Christian sphere. So if this is stuff that you guys would like me to talk more about, I love it. I love it. So I'm down for it. So let me know if you guys want that. Otherwise, that is it. So have a lovely day.